cattle chute perfect for giving cows antibiotics and vaccinating them, and of course I locked myself in it.
Oh, I'm stuck in here. Oh my gosh.
There's a lot of misconceptions circulating in the media surrounding antibiotic use in meat. To uncover the truth behind the use of antibiotics in cattle and its potential impact on our health, I visited a farm and had a conversation with someone in the agriculture industry. This is Ashlyn, who's a 9th-generation farmer and animal nutritionist motivated to impact the beef cattle industry. Welcome to Food Convos with Sal.
Antibiotics are only given when the cattle are sick. So just as you and I, we're not going to use antibiotics right now. We're only going to use that if we are sick, because we don't want to build up that resistance.
When grocers slap antibiotic-free on the label on their meat, is that deceptive?
It's definitely deceptive. They're going to go through that withdrawal period to ensure that they don't have antibiotics still in their system prior to harvest. So that should not be a concern whatsoever. And I see it as basically a marketing campaign for meat packers or grocers to allow for a premium price on a product that's no better than the one that doesn't say antibiotic free. There's no gain to it other than just marketing and confusion for the consumer. That should be something that the consumer should not have to fear. There are no antibiotics in the meat any piece of meat that you are going to receive from a grocery store or maybe a local farmer that's selling their local beef to you. There's nothing to worry about in regards to antibiotics.
When it says antibiotic-free, it doesn't mean that it's antibiotic-free within its entire lifetime. It's just saying within the time of slaughter that it's antibiotic-free.
So antibiotic-free, that is something that they have implemented that basically is a marketing campaign and also a program that includes incentives for a producer, which is them not using antibiotics throughout the entire life of the animal. That is really hard to do. It's really hard to keep track of. So not a lot of people are able to do it. So that means if we treat a cow or a calf for pink eye, that little small issue that we have to deal with, we give it any sort of antibiotics, we have to sort them out of the antibiotic-free herd. So there's a lot of record keeping that goes into it and a lot of complications and organization that you have to go through in order to provide those records and also sort out the ones that you had to treat, because we can't just not treat them. That's not humane. That goes into the animal welfare factor. We have to ensure that we're basically making them as comfortable as possible and treating when treatment is necessary. So that is something that you can buy at the grocery store. But overall, I feel like it's not a necessary piece of marketing or program to utilize because there's no gains for the consumer. You buying antibiotic-free meat and me not does not make your health any more improved than mine, because like we talked about, that meat overall is going to be antibiotic free at the time that it's put in a package.
Is it making humans sick as we are consuming cows that have had antibiotics in them?
I definitely do not see antibiotics usage in cattle as a risk for human consumption of beef products. If we were giving them antibiotics constantly, and having that as a routine, I would feel like that may be a concern. But just utilizing those on a case-to-case basis to where they're maybe getting that drug once or twice throughout their life, I don't see that as a large concern. It's not really a big deal.
Once or twice within their lifetime, which is huge,
right?
Because people think it's happening like constantly.
That's why we vaccinate, basically to promote not having to use these antibiotics. We don't want to use antibiotics. That is something that is expensive for us. Just a bottle of antibiotics is in the hundreds of dollars. So we don't want to put our money into that. That's going to take away from our profits. So we're seeing this from a business side of things as well as just overall animal welfare too. So there's a lot that goes into it. But yeah, we aren't seeing antibiotic usage as something that's regular. This is something that needs to be done, though, because it's really important. There is something that we see that also people can get to, which is pink eye. Cattle will get that in around the summer months. And if we do not treat that, then they're going to go blind. So it's really hard to not use antibiotics because that's our only way of treating that, as well as maybe pneumonia. That's what we use antibiotics for, is for also treating for pneumonia and any other respiratory diseases. It's really important to utilize those because those are what works. And if we don't give them that, then they're going to basically die. And it's not going to be a very easy death or anything relative to comfortable. So we always want to make sure that they're comfortable and they're getting the treatment they need and that it's effective and in a timely, efficient manner. I kind of like to see this from the human perspective. I feel like it's not right to restrict you from antibiotic use, even if you're sick. And I don't think you would be very fond of me not letting you have your medications when you're sick. We see that as safe for us because we are consuming that or getting administered that as treatment as well, directly into our bodies. So the FDA has approved all drugs that we use, and they also implement withdrawal times on those drugs as well. So antibiotics that we use on our cattle, you can turn the bottle around and see what are called withdrawal periods. Those are at least around 15 to 30 days, if not more. And those are a time period that when we give that drug, we cannot sell them. So they cannot be harvested during that time period, just to ensure that any sort of residue or basically antibiotics in the meat is not there anymore. It is great that we are able to use that in our operation just to keep them healthy, because it really goes along the lines of animal welfare. So we can't let them be miserable. I don't like to see an animal miserable. I don't think any of us do. So just being able to treat them and see some results, at least within 24 hours, is great. And we have a lot of different ways of administering that to where it's stress-free on the animal.
Why are antibiotics used on cattle, and why can't you use other medicine that's more natural?
That's something that we could even ask on the human medicine side of things. Why do we use antibiotics? Why should cattle have antibiotics? It all goes hand in hand. It's because it works. That is what works best. It's the most efficient. It's the most cost effective. It treats and it works. So we want basically the same amount and equivalent care for our animals as we do ourselves.
Do you think it's going into the ecosystem?
In terms of the effect on our overall ecosystem, I feel like that is basically close to zero, primarily because we're only treating with antibiotics on a case-to-case basis. So we're treating when they're sick, which is not very much. So that's a very small number of treatment cases that we experience. So with that, they're only receiving what you can put in the top of your pinky amount of drugs. So that's going directly into their body. We inject that into usually their neck. So that's not touching the ground. It's not being exposed. It's all kept in sterile bottles. It's all very contained and in a safe area.
Do most farmers use them to fatten up the cows?
So kind of misleading information. Antibiotics are put into implants to provide antimicrobial effects. So just basically preventing infections when giving implants. These implants contain hormones. So these are growth hormones that allow the cattle to develop quicker and basically just add on additional pounds and do that in progress with that. So implants are used, and then something that we use a lot, especially in feeds or minerals. Minerals have just vitamins and minerals that cattle need, just like we need vitamins and minerals. Those can contain ionophores. Those are not considered antibiotics, but are antibiotic-like compounds that are given to cattle in order to promote feed efficiency and improve weight gains as well, just like implants, but are not defined as an antibiotic, although they are a drug. So those are some medicated feeds that we utilize as well in our beef industry to promote weight gains, but do not include antibiotics.
Okay, but so what are these growth hormones that you're talking about, and are they bad for us?
Growth hormones are used in implants. They're given behind the ear. That's where they are administered, and then they're given in a slow rate. So they're put in that ear basically because at the cartilage, it's not going to be taken into the body as quickly. So it can be basically administered slowly, although it was given at one time. FDA approves all of these drugs to be utilized, and the ones that obviously are on the market are FDA approved. So they have confirmed that there are no effects to humans or the animal by utilizing those drugs or hormones, as well as including drugs in them like antibiotics, to just basically prevent any sort of infections to that area. So that it should have no sort of effect on humans on consumption of meat that has utilized implants.
So growth hormones can be used on most cattle, but it's antibiotics that really are misrepresented in the media, where people think that they're given like antibiotics for them to grow, but it's actually the growth hormones that they're given for them to grow.
Right. Primarily, antibiotics can be given if someone is trying to ship in cattle. So that would not be someone like us. This is someone that maybe owns a feedlot, or they background cattle and they're getting cattle from a lot of different areas that may be exposed to diseases that they don't want them to get and bring into their herd. And sometimes people will utilize antibiotics as a preventative measure rather than for treatment. And then those antibiotics are administered basically when they receive the animal, so the cattle in this instance, and that kind of builds up antibiotic resistance. So a lot of people aren't doing that much anymore because we have seen where that is not really a great practice as we've advanced with science. That was just kind of something that we didn't know. So now we know, and we're trying to do better with that.
Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed Food Convos, please subscribe and smash that like button. Until next time, see you later, Salligators.